Good morning, everybody. Bruchim Abim and welcome. We got up to a bit through Mishnah Gimel in Perek Aleph in Pirkei Avot. We're going in order, and we're trying to crunch each and every passage in the Mishnah in order to get a deeper understanding of, number one, who the personalities were who said the various Ma'amorim in Pirkei Avot, how their very history and nature relates to everything that is brought down in the Mishnah, and also to be able to understand in depth what exactly the Mishnah was trying to say. We begin, as we do each and every week, with the statement that the Mishnah of Pirkei Avot, Mishnayos of Pirkei Avot, begins with Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek le'olam haba. All of the Jewish people, collectively and individually, have a share in the world to come. And of course, when we say collectively, it means because it's impossible, as we have mentioned in the past, for any one individual to do all 613 mitzvahs. You can't be a Kohen, a Levi, and a Yisrael all at once. You can't be a male and a female all at once. Although today, I don't know, but generally speaking, it can't be done. And therefore, it's when a Kohen and a Levi and Yisrael join together, when a person is v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, we're able to collectively do all 613 mitzvahs, and that's why Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek le'olam haba. All the Jewish people have a share in the world to come, and it's very important as we go through Pirkei Avot to keep that thought in our heads, because it's something that we have to walk around with on a regular basis. There's so much negativism available in the world at large that the Jewish people, when we start or think about what our purpose is in life, and we have the concept of Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek le'olam haba, so you could say to yourself, Baruch Hashem, He made me part of Klal Yisrael. You know, the Gemara says that a person is supposed to walk around with the concept of Bishvili Nivra ha'olam. The world was created because of me. I wouldn't recommend going out on Per Kennig and standing there and saying, everybody pay attention, please. I want you to know Bishvili Nivra ha'olam. I don't recommend doing that. It's not the kind of thing we want to go publicize. But we have to think to ourselves, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made this world for me, and He's giving me the opportunity as a Ben or Bas Yisrael to have a chelek in Olam Haba. And we have to keep that in mind, especially in the Mishnah that we're learning today. So, Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek le'olam haba. All of Klal Yisrael has a share in the world to come. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "V'amech kulam tzadikim." Your entire nation is righteous. Le'olam yeshu oretz. They shall forever inherit the land. Neitzar matoi. They are the branch of my planting. Maaseh yodai lehispoyer. They are the work of my hand, says Hashem, that I may be glorified. We're in Mishnah Gimel. And we're going to start once again from the beginning, just to recapitulate a little bit some of what we said and to crunch it to the rest of it. Antignos ish socho kibel mishim and atzadik. Antignos, the man of Socha, and we remarked, and we're not going to go through that in depth now, but we remarked that Antignos had a non-Jewish name. His name was Antignos, and if you remember, who did we relate that to? There was one other individual that had a non-Jewish name that ultimately became a famous Jewish name, of course, Alexander, right? Alexander the Great, because Alexander the Great preceded Antignos ish socho, and the children of the Jewish people that are named Sender or Alexander are named after Alexander the Great, as we learned from the Gemara in Yuma that was spoken about with Shimon HaTzadik when he met Alexander, and Alexander wanted to go into the Kodesh Kodashim, and Alexander said, I can't let you do that, but this year any males that are born are going to be named after you, Alexander the Great. And sure enough, that's what happened. The Jewish people named their children Alexander, and that's how Jews got the name Sender, or Alexander. So he was the one, Antignos ish socho. He was also a popular name because of some good things that were done by a non-Jew named Antignos, and he was in the city of Socho, and he received the tradition. We have a concept of the Masorah being passed down from one generation to the next, and Antignos is Socha, a great Talmid Chacham, he received it from Shimon HaTzadik. And then the Mishnah tells us what was his common phrase. He was wont to say this on a regular basis. Hu haya omer, al tiyu ka'avodim ha'mishamshin es harav, do not be like servants who serve the master, al menas lekabel pras. Don't serve Hashem on condition or under the understanding or circumstances that you're going to get a reward. Do not serve for the purpose of getting a reward. Elo, but rather, hevu ka'avodim ha'mishamshin es harav, al menas shelo lekabel pras. Serve Hashem not on the condition of getting a reward. I'm not assuming that you're going to get a reward. Now, there are two girses. There are two different expressions in order to be able to explain this Mishnah. One is the one we just read, al menas shelo lekabel pras, and there is another girsa which says, the other girsa is, hevu ka'avodim ha'mishamshin es harav, shelo al menas lekabel pras, not with the hope of any reward. And we'll discuss that a little bit more. V'hi mora shemayim aleichem. But he ends off with the statement, keep the fear of God constantly upon you. We had started to discuss this concept of shelo al menas lekabel pras, not on the condition of receiving any reward. Now, if we asked the average well-read Jew who knows a little bit about the words of the Torah, are there places in the Torah that tell us that you're guaranteed to get reward?
Yes.
Give an example. Okay, Laman Yirbu Yemechem V'Mei right? Alo Adoma Hashem Nishba Hashem Lavasechem L'Ses Lehem. At the end of the second paragraph is Shema Laman Yirbu Yemechem. You're going to have long life. Okay, any other places? Right in the Ten Commandments. 100%. Next week's Edra is B'chukosai. In B'chukosai Telechu, Ves Mitzvosai Tishmuru, Asisim Osam, V'nosati Gishmechem Be'itam, V'nosna Ha'aretz Es Yevula, V'eitz Asoda Yitain Piryo, V'hisig Lachem Da'ish Es Batzir, Batzir Yasir Gezora, V'achaltem Lachmechem Losova, V'yishavtem Levetach Ba'aretzechem. Unbelievable. The whole beginning of B'chukosai, left and right, promises. So what's this business of Antignos Socho saying, Al tiyu ka'avodim ha'mishamshin es harav, al menas lekabel pras, el tiyu ka'avodim al menas shelo lekabel pras. How can he come and say that? That was the major question that we started this particular Mishnah with, and started to answer some of that question. So first, we have to keep in mind that al menas lekabel pras has a very specific translation. How would you translate the word pras? What's it related to? Do we find that in halacha at all? The word pras at all related? On Pesach it certainly is, it comes up about a pras. Okay, a prusa. A prusa is a piece, like a piece of bread. Right? When it comes to the matzah, you have to eat. You have to eat at least a prusa, kzayis. But a prusa is not the whole thing. A prusa is just a piece of the whole thing. So maybe what Antignos Socho is saying, Al tiyu ka'avodim ha'mishamshin es harav, al menas lekabel pras. And if you'll ask, but doesn't the Torah promise reward left and right? Yes. The Torah promises schar. The Torah promises you're going to get reward. But don't do a mitzvah on condition that you're only going to get a pras of a reward. It turns the whole Mishnah upside down. Don't do a mitzvah on condition you're going to get a pras, a piece of the reward. Why limit yourself? Why limit yourself to only doing a mitzvah on condition of getting a small little piece of the reward? when the Torah itself promises you, L'man yarichan yamecha, L'man yirbu yamechem, V'nasati gishmechem be'itam. And even for the small little pras, you're not supposed to do the mitzvah for the sake of getting the reward. So there's two ways of looking at it. Don't serve Hashem on condition that you're going to get a small little piece of reward. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit the possibility of Hashem promising the ultimate great reward that is accruing to every Jew. Don't do that. Not to get this little reward, but hopefully to get the major piece of the reward. But that presents a problem for the famous Gemara in Kedushin, where it says, Schar mitzvah b'hai alma leka. The Gemara says it openly over there. There is no reward of any mitzvah in this world. You can't look upon a reward in any mitzvah in this world. When it says that you're going to get reward, we're talking about liyom shakulo tov, to the day which is everything. So we have to understand Antignos Ish Socho's opening statement here, in the sense we shouldn't, number one, limit the possibilities of getting reward, and we shouldn't expect that the reward is coming definitely in this world. Which words of Antignos Ish Socho seem to imply that we're talking about definitely? Al tiyu ka'avodim ha'mishamshin esorav al menas lekabel pras. The Gemara makes a statement that kol ha'omer al menas, anyone who says a statement of al menas, it's a Gemara in Gittin, on Ayin Beis, where it says, anyone who says the word al menas, they're saying right here, right now. I want the reward right now. I'll do the mitzvah, al menas, so that I see right now that I get the reward. Because we find that the term al menas implies an immediacy. I want the reward, and I want the reward right now. That you can't do. If you're willing to do the mitzvah on the condition that at some point Hashem's promise of getting reward is going to accrue to you, and that reward is not the reward of Olam Hazeh, but it's the reward that ultimately comes in Olam Haba, that's okay. But not Al Menas. Now, why not Al Menas? Why not get the reward immediately? Why not? So Antignos Ish Socho is coming along and telling us, that can be a very, very dangerous operative norm that you try to include in your life. Because we see in reality that there isn't the reward coming in Olam Hazeh at all. Some people seem to have it really, really good. And if you think that the reason they have it really good is because they're getting a reward for what they did in Olam Hazeh, that's a figment of your imagination. That reward is only a little bit of what ultimately accrues to them, because schar mitzvah b'hai alma, the real schar, not alma, not pras, schar, the real reward in this world does not exist. You have wonderful, wonderful people, hundreds of thousands, millions of Klal Yisrael that do so many good things, and they themselves, if you ask them how life was, they would say Baruch Hashem. But when you investigate, you find that they have so many difficulties. That life is so fraught with things that you'd say, such a tzaddik should have such a problem? Such a tzaddik should go through so much internal, emotional, or physical pain? It doesn't jive. Even if you take a look at the Avos, if you take a look at our fathers, it doesn't fit. Neither Avram, Yitzchak, or Yaakov had it all good. On the contrary, they were faced with constant challenges, continual challenges. Some of them, the kinds of challenges none of us would want or think about. Would Yitzchak and Rivka want the challenge of having a son named and acting like Esav? Never, not in a million years. What about all the loyalty? Yaakov Avinu. There was a major civil war amongst his children. Can you imagine a group of your children, chas v'shalom, not even think about it, a group of kids gang up on one of the kids, and they bring you his favorite suit, covered in blood, and they say, Chayara achalosu. A wild animal ate him up, like they did to Yosef. Would you imagine Titan Emes Liakov, that the great bearer of truth in the world should have such a problem? So this helps us understand that when we talk about schar, now the end result of all this is that they came back together. There was a positive ending of sorts. But I think we would gladly trade it in, maybe, for a little yishuv hanefesh. And that's what we want. And so Antignos is giving us a little bit of an insight into this concept that there's no reward ultimately in this world. Okay. Now, the Baal HaFlah, of Pinchas Halevi Horowitz, by the way, he was a Talmud of the Maggid of Mezrich in the 18th century, and he wrote his unbelievable master work on the Talmud, on the Gemara, was on Masechta Ksubas, Yam HaTalmud, and he was known as the Baal HaFlah. He comes up with a very interesting explanation over here in terms of Al Tiyu Ka'avodim HaMishamshin Es Harav Shelo Almanas L'Kabel Pras. Okay, now there's another parish by the Or Hanayim, which also dovetails with this particular idea, and we're going to have to go to the Chumash to get an idea about that pasuk. Excuse me. Okay, there's a famous pasuk in Devarim, in Perek Ches. Perek Ches is a fascinating perek in Devarim. If you just read some of the things that are written over here in terms of the Jewish history that took place at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim and beyond that, I'll read just a little bit so we get a flavor of what we're about to focus on. The Perek in Ches starts with the words Kol HaMitzvah Asher Anochi Mitzavcha Hayom Tishmerun La'asos. All of the mitzvah that I have commanded you today, you should guard to do, L'man Tichyun Urevisem, so that you will live and be multiplied. Uvosem, and you are going to come, V'yidishtem es ha'aretz, and you're going to possess the land, Asher nishba Hashem levosechem, which Hashem swore to your forefathers. The opening pasuk talks about reward, and it says, V'zacharta es kol haderech asher alicha Hashem alekecha, and you should remember all the path that Hashem your God brought you on, Ze'ar Barim Shana Bamidbar, 40 years in the desert, L'man Anoscha, in order to afflict you a little bit, L'naso Secha, to test you, L'das es asher uvavcha, to know what's in your heart. Tests have different types of purposes. We'll discuss in a moment. All right? Hasishmar mitzvosevim lo, will you guard his commandments or not? Mr. Irving Bunim, who wrote a very famous parish on Pirkei Avot, gives a mashal about tests. He says, sometimes you test something to see whether it's whole or not. And sometimes you test something to improve it. What's the mashal? So you have a potter who's making pottery pots, right? So he's making pottery pots out of clay, right? And you bake it, and you want to make sure it's solid. So you take a little hammer, and with intelligence, you take the hammer and you hit the pot, one spot and another spot, because if the pot is not in good condition, you might say it's a cracked pot, right? if the pot is not in good condition, so when you hit it, it's going to make a funny noise. And you're going to know right away, oh, this pot is not solid because it's vibrating and there's something wrong. So you give it a slight tap in order to see whether it's a whole pot or a cracked pot. You understand? That's one reason that you test the pot. But there's another reason. Because when you take the hammer and you gently hit the clay pot around, what else are you doing? You're solidifying the pot to be stronger and stronger. So that when you tap it gently in the right way, the pot becomes stronger and better and less prone to breakage. So there are two reasons for tests. One is to see whether it's, to begin with, no good, and the other is to improve the nature of the material of the pot. So Hashem gives us tests sometimes in life, and the tests are to do both. Are you a crackpot, or are you something that I can improve on with a little nudge here and there? You get a little touch with the hammer and you say, I got to be a little bit stronger than that. I got to withstand this test. I got to become a little bit better. So here Hashem is telling us this is going to be done in order to test you a little bit, to know if you are following Hashem's way or not. And then it says a little bit more. We're going to get to the main pasuk in a minute. Vaya'ancha, and he afflicted you. Vayarivecha, and you even had hunger. Vayachilche as hamon, and then he fed you the man. Asher lo yadata. The man, of course, is Sfiras HaOmer, right? Omer man, the quality of an Omer in the man. We count Sfiras HaOmer. I mentioned it at a SHIUR. I think it was almost 2 weeks ago. You know the law of Sfiras HaOmer, right? Right? If you don't know what day it is, what do you do?
What was yesterday?
You ask what was yesterday, right? So there was this very, very frum woman. She was like a real Rebbitzin. And her husband, came home from shul one day in the Sfiras HaOmer, and he says to his wife, he says, what's for supper? Now she was very frum. So she says, last night you had chicken. You don't want to tell us today. Okay, so they fed them the mun, right? They fed them the mun at that time, right? And none of you knew about it. And laman hodiyacha, you should know ki lo alechem levado yichya adam, ki al kol motzeh bi Hashem yichya adam. And then it goes on and talk about more and more. I want to get to the main pasuk, and here it says like this. Now watch this. It says, I brought you to a land of flowing rivers and so on and so forth. Eretz chita usaora, a land of wheat and barley. V'gefen u'te'ein of a rimon, and vine, grapes, and figs and pomegranates. Eretz shemen u'dvash, a land flowing with honey, with olive oil, and dvash, honey of tamarim, of dates. By the way, we're not going to go through it now, but you should know that the order of the words in this particular pasuk is the order in which brachas have to be made. The Sheva Minim that I mentioned in this pasuk give you an insight into which bracha precedes which bracha. Let's say, for instance, let's see if we can figure this out. Let's say you have wine in front of you, right? Eretz chita or a gefen. You have wheat and barley and wine, and you have it in front of you, right? Which bracha comes first? The mizonos or the gefen? Which one comes first? Lahalocha. Mizonot comes first. Of course, because it's mentioned first in the pasuk.
That's why we cover the chalot.
Excellent. Right. Because when you're making kiddush on Shabbos, and you're making the bracha dafka over the wine, because kiddusha so ala yayin, you have to cover up the mizonos or the challah. Why do you have to cover it up? Not to embarrass it. You're too sensitive, marble cake. Imagine that the marble cake's going to get embarrassed. Shalo yira pas bosto, says the halacha, so that the bread doesn't get embarrassed. Anybody here make an embarrassing challah?
Sometimes.
So what's the pshat? What's the pshat so that the bread shouldn't get embarrassed? What do we have to learn from this? Imagine, inanimate objects, a Jew has to be careful not to embarrass the bracha. What about a human being who has feelings? Oh, imagine you come to Kiddush and you have bread on the mizonos for the Kiddush, let's say, and wine, and you announce, we are now going to cover the mizonos so as not to embarrass the marble cake. I don't know if you know this. You know who the first one who ate marble cake? Noach. Marble cake. All right. But anyway, if you didn't laugh, it's okay. so that's really bad. That's like okay, but the point is, we're so careful about inanimate objects because there's something to every single object in this world that has a sense of divinity to it. We don't often think about that. I was just reading an article recently about the eclipse that took place a few weeks ago in the northern western hemisphere. So you know how unbelievable an eclipse is. It's like, and anybody said this in accent, like unbelievable. The moon is 4 million times smaller than the sun, and it's 4 million, or I don't even know, 400 million miles away from it. And the only way you can ever have an eclipse is if it would both be exactly that distance with exactly that size. Otherwise, it wouldn't make an eclipse at all, because there would always be something showing through. It's exactly in proportion that such a thing comes out. There are no accidents in this world. Everything is planned and purposeful. When everything is planned and purposeful, plan and purpose yields perfection. And perfection doesn't happen by accident. The world wasn't created by accident. The world was created with divine inspiration, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself creating it. So if he gives marble cake the sense of divinity that you can't insult it, alachas kama v'kama, how much more so when it comes to humanity? And that's all encapsulated in this little pasuk. Okay, we're not going to go through that more. We're going to go further. And then it says like this, a famous pasuk, v'yachalta v'savata oveidachtas Hashem lakecha, you will eat and you can bless Hashem, and so on and so forth. Now, let's go a little bit further ahead, and it says like this. Ben tochal v'savata, lest you eat and become satisfied, ubatim tovim tivne v'yashavta, and you build good houses and live in them, and uvakarcha v'tzoncha yirbiyun, you're going to have much success with your cattle. V'kesef v'zav yirbelecha, you're going to get gold and silver, a silver leichter, and a golden nameplate, and a gold watch, and a gold cufflinks, and so on and so forth. V'chol asher lecha yirbe. V'dam levavecha, and then you're going to have a haughty heart. V'shachachta Hashem lekecha hamotziacha me'eretz Yisrael v'yasod. When you're going to forget Hashem, who took you out, because you'll become wealthy. You'll become I used to say millionaire, but millionaires come a dime a dozen today. So a billionaire, okay, good. You'll become a billionaire, right? And you'll forget, you forget Hashem who took you out of the land of Egypt. Now here comes the crunch. Okay? He took you through this awesome desert. He took you through our desert. There's thirst. There's nothing to drink. And he brought out water from the flint rock, the driest rock available. He gave you man, again, in order to test you. And then it says, and you're going to say in your heart, when you got through all these trials and tribulations in life, Kochi v'otzem yadi liyasachayil hazeh. Famous line. You're going to say, Kochi v'otzem yadi liyasachayil hazeh. My power and the strength of my bones, that's what gave me all this. I worked hard. I was the one who stayed in the office late. I was the one who took tremendous risks. I was the one who put the money in the right stock. I was the one who figured it all out. The next pasuk is the key. You should remember Hashem, your God. This is the one we're going to focus on. Because he is the one who gives you the power to make valor, to make war. All right? You all hear Avram Fried singing in the background? Right? Yeah. He made a famous song out of this. Okay. The Ramban on this pasuk says something that we can really take to heart in our day and age. Says the Ramban, V'zacharta es Hashem Elokecha, you should remember Hashem your God, Ki hu hanosen lecha koach lasos chayil. He is the one who gives you the power to make war. Says the Ramban, Yodua, it is known, Ki Yisrael Giborim. Wow. It is known, said the Ramban. And if the Ramban said it, you know it's true. B'zacharta, you should know, Ki hu anosin lecha koach lasos chayil, Yodua, Ki Yisrael Giborim v'anshe chayil l'milchama. You should know that the Jews are valorous and powerful in waging war. Ki nimshelu la'arayos, because they're compared to lions. Gur Arya Yehuda, miteref b'niyo Lisa. The Jewish people are like lions. Ule ze'ev yitraf, Binyamin, ze'ev yitraf, says the pasuk in Vayechi. Baboka yochal ad, v'la'erev yichalek shalol. Like a wolf. They're powerful. Now watch this. Umalchei Kenan b'milchama nitzchu osam. And yet, the kings of Canaan who were weaker than the Jews were able to vanquish them at points in history. Al-Kain, Omar, therefore, it says, Im tachshov kochi v'otzem yodi osali asachayil hazeh. If you're going to say, it's my power and my strength which did this victory in war, Tizkar Hashem she'hotzi oscha mitzrayim v'lo hoya lecha shom koach v'otzem yad klal. When you came out of Egypt, you had no power, you had no strength, you were slaves bedraggled over hundreds of years of put-down type of slavery and abuse, and yet you vanquished Egypt. V'tizkar od, and you should, the Ramban is unbelievable here. V'tizkar od, ki b'midbar asher ein l'keil yodcha liyosham. You had no power to be able to live there. Also l'cha kol tzarchecha. Hashem did all and provided all your needs. Imkain, if so, gam hachayil hazeh asher asisa b'kochacha. Also, the valor that you did with your strength, how'd you get it from? Where'd you get that strength from? Hashem hu shenasan l'cha hakoach asher asisa also. It's Hashem who gives you the power to do this. The Ramban's not finished. Ve'im tishkach es Hashem. And if you forget that Hashem is the one who helps you do this, yichle kochacha u'she'echa v'tovad ka'asher avdu heim. If you're going to forget and think that you are the one who did it, and you're the one who does it, you're going to lose it all. You're going to lose it all. Ki kol ozvei Hashem yecholu. Because all those who forsake Hashem are ultimately destroyed. So when the Jewish people are victorious in any way, shape, or form over millions, stronger and larger, surrounded by enemies at all times, and somehow we're able to be victorious, the Ramban is saying, don't forget. How does it pertain to our Mishnah? Pashut. Because Antignos Isocho said, Al tiyu ka'avadim ha'mishamshin esarav, al menas lekabel pras. Don't be like someone who serves God on condition that you're going to get a benefit. Because if you do something and you're capable of serving Him, who gave you that power to serve Him? Who gave you the ability to overcome the Yetzer Hara and to be able to do the mitzvah that comes your way when all around you they say, what do you need this for? What's this business with the shaking of the lulav? You crazy? What is this? You can't eat a piece of bread for 8 days? Come on. It's not healthy. What are you doing? And you're going to fast for 25 hours and stand on your feet and fall on the ground? What? All right, a little coffee? No! Not even a little, half a cup of coffee? No! Unbelievable. And who does this? All of Klal Yisrael on a regular basis. So if you did a mitzvah and you're mishamshin esarav, what do you expect? You expect that you deserve reward? Says Antignos Isocho. You don't deserve reward. He's the one who gave you the ability to do this. So if He gave you that ability, it's not you. And if it's not you, what right do you have to claim? Al menas lekabel pras. What right do you have to claim that I should get reward? You don't deserve any reward. He's the one who gives you the power. And the Ramban goes on a little bit more just, and he says, he brings another one, and he says, Shema Yisrael, Dovar Emes Mipi. I want you to listen, but that's in Perek Tes. You're going to come in, you little ragtag Jews who are going to cross over the Yarden with Yehoshua, and you're going to go and you're going to fight against the 7 Canaanite nations, and you're going to walk around a city and you're going to blow the shofar and sing some song of Inu Ha'arachaman, or Animamin or whatever, and the walls are going to come tumbling down, right? So it's not you, and that's what the Ramban is bringing down here. How are you going to win and beat them in war? It's amazing how relevant this particular Ramban on that pasuk is for us. How are you going to conquer them? And all the 30-odd kings of the land of Canaan are there, and you're going to go and you're going to attack them. You're going to hope to be victorious. How are you going to do that? Blowing shofars? You're going to blow a shofar and the walls are going to come. We were kids, Joshua Foot, the Battle of Jericho, we used to sing. What do you mean? He sounded the shofar and the walls came tumbling down. What kind of business is this? That's Kol Chiva Otzim Yodi? Not at all. It's Kihu Hanosin L'Chakoach Lasos Choyel. So this Ramban is crucial to help explain what Antignos Isocho is saying. Says the Baal HaFlaw, how do you go around thinking to yourself that I'm going to be victorious in this particular, engagement or war, and it's my power that does it? And the same thing with Al Tiyu Ka'avadim HaMishamshin Esarav Amanas. On a condition, I get the reward, I want it, and I'm going to get it now, the Kabel Pras. And again, when we say the Kabel Pras, remember the Pras is only a piece of it. And that's what the Me'orei Naim is coming along and saying, that you're limiting yourself. Because if you're going to say, all I want is a little bit, when in reality you have a right to the whole pie. You have a right to the whole thing, for the very simple reason that Hashem promised you that you're going to get all these promises. And that was our original question. How could he say that you should serve Shalom and Asakabel Pras? You don't want to get just a small piece. You want the schar, not the pras. And the schar is schar mitzvah, b'hai al maleka, as the Gemara says, but rather you're going to get the whole piece when the time comes. And you should know that when Chazal say something, it's going to be borne out and happen. It's exactly going to be that way. I want to tell you a story that's printed up. And I can testify that these things are true in that particular book. Rabbi David Feinstein, Zichrono Livracha, my Rabbi in yeshiva from the time I entered into Tiferes Yerushalayim when I was 17 years old, and he was my first Rabbi in the yeshiva in Tiferes Yerushalayim. After I graduated high school, I went to Tiferes Yerushalayim to learn, and before I was able to get to the Rosh Yeshiva SHIUR, we first were in Rabbi David Feinstein SHIUR. I was there for 2-3 years, and then we moved up to the Beis Medrash, and we were in the Rosh Yeshiva SHIUR. But Rabbi David ultimately became the Rosh Yeshiva, and in fact, for those who know or knew Rabbi David even a little bit, you knew that Rabbi Moshe, I wouldn't say deferred to him, but he definitely said, if you have a question, you need to know something in Torah, you talk to my son Rabbi David. Ken. He knows. He knew everything. So what happened? One of the Bachrim in the yeshiva went over to Rabbi David and said, Rabbi, we talk about reward in this world, and Chazal say that if you're ever going to be a sandik at a bris, then sandikos, to be a sandik is a bracha for ashiras. You're gonna become wealthy. But look at all the people I know who were sandik at a bris, and they didn't become wealthy. What's this business? Chazal said you're going to become wealthy. I know people who they want to buy the sandikos for $10, $15 so that they can become wealthy. So how could you say it's going to happen when it may not ever happen? I mean, we had the experience that when my grandson was born, I asked Reb David to come and be the sandik. And he came, of course. And my students were there. We danced with him and so on, and whatever. So Reb David answered, this wasn't at this bris, but Reb David told him the following story. He said, I want to tell you something. Reb David did not have an office with a phone. The phone was in the hallway. It was a public phone right next to the soda machine that Reb David used to fill and take care of because it's a mitzvah to help the yeshiva earn some funds from the soda machine. Anyway, he was so humble. One time they got a call on the public phone and they asked for Rabbi David Feinstein. So Rabbi David was learning in the Beis Medrash. They told him he has a phone call. He went out to the hallway, picked up the phone. The woman on the other end said, is this Rabbi David Feinstein, the son of Rabbi Moses Feinstein? She says, yes, it's me. She says, I need your help. I have a daughter who unfortunately married out of the faith. And she had a son. Now, I know that the son is Jewish because he's born from a Jewish mother, which is the halacha, right? And I want the child to have a bris on the 8th day. My daughter and her husband are not interested at all. But they said, if you want to do it, go right ahead. Have fun. We won't stand in your way. So I want you to know I'm hiring a glatt kosher caterer, and I'm going to have the bris. I live out in Long Island, and I want to honor Rabbi David Feinstein with the ability to be the sandik at the bris. Could you please do me a favor and be the sandik at the bris? Rabbi David knew this woman, not at all. Not at all. So Rabbi David says, okay, I'll come. When is it? Next Tuesday at this and this time. I'll send a car for you and it'll pick you up and bring you and take you back. He said, okay, I'll come. Sure enough, at the appointed time, he gets in the car, he goes out, they drive out an hour and a half out to the island over there. They get to the house, the baby's there, the moel's there, and the bris is made. And there were some guests, and he was the sandik at the bris. After the bris, the woman served a glatt kosher suda. She asked David to please stay and eat something at the suda. He said, okay. He sat down and ate at the suda. While as at the suda, the woman says, Rabbi Feinstein, will you honor us, please, by saying a word of Torah at the bris? He says, okay. And I don't know if you know this, Rabbi David did not speak in public. He was humble. He didn't speak. But he said, okay. And he got up and he said a Divine Torah. And then he got back in the car and he went home. End of story, it seems. Years passed. And he never heard from the woman again. The executive director runs into the Beis Medrash a few years later and says, Rabbi David, look at this. I got a phone call just now from a famous lawyer in New York. He wants to speak to you. Can you please come to the office and get on the phone? The David said, okay. He comes into the office. This famous lawyer gets on the phone, and he says, is this Rabbi David Feinstein, the son of Rabbi Moses Feinstein? Can you identify yourself? And so on and so forth. He says, yes. He says, what address can I send the check to? He says, what check? He says, this woman, so and so and so forth, was a very wealthy woman, and she left $1 million to your name. Because you came out to the bris 10, 12, 13 years ago. And she wanted to give you this gift. So if David was telling the Talmidim, I didn't keep it, I gave it to the yeshiva. But don't ever say that if Chazal say something, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. It's guaranteed. Only it may not happen immediately. And that's why when Antignos Ish Socho said, Al Minas, and the words Al Minas mean on condition that it happens right now. As the Gemara in Gittin says, Al Minas ka omer me achshav dami. When you say Al Minas, it's as if from this moment on. And you should know that it's going to happen. It may not happen immediately, but it's going to happen. And therefore, Antignos Ish Socho was able to say, if you're going to say, don't say Al Minas l'kabel pras, because it's not going to happen immediately. Because Schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka. It's not going to happen immediately. It's going to happen sometime down the road, but it's going to happen. Because if Chazal said something, it's a guarantee that is what's going to be. Right, there's a lot more here. This is only, you might say, the tip of the iceberg in terms of Al Minas l'kabel pras, or Shalom Al Minas l'kabel pras, v'hi mora shemayim aleichem. And Yetz Hashem, next time when we continue, next Tuesday, Yetz Hashem will try to crunch it a little bit more and see if we can't get to more of the essence of this particular Mishnah. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha Omer, V'atza HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakos es Yisrael, l'fiko chiblam Torah mitzvah, shenemar, Hashem chavetz l'man tzedko yadil Torah v'yadir. So we'll see you Yetz Hashem next week. Have a good week, Yetz Hashem.
I was press stop.
Oh, okay.